Hi everyone and welcome to Bonnie Astrology. Today I'm going to be discussing the new moon in Scorpio happening November 1st, 2024, and of course what it means for your zodiac sign. As always, if you do enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up to let me know that you like it, subscribe to the channel for regular astrology updates from me, and if you want to follow me on any of my socials or book an astrological reading with me, the information listed in the description is the only place that you can get me. I do now have an official website where you can book a reading with me if you're looking to see what 2025 has in store for you. So let's get into this new moon in Scorpio. First of all, when is it happening? It's happening on the 1st of November, which is the day after Halloween. And to have a new moon in Scorpio within a day of Halloween is quite magical. Halloween is a time that we associated with magic, spell work, divination, and in Halloweens of years gone by, it was a time, particularly in Ireland, where people focused on divination. Not necessarily the tarot cards, as they were not invented, they were not brought to Ireland until 1901, but certain traditions with Halloween, Samhain can be where an apple was peeled and tossed over your shoulder to reveal the initial of your one true love, the person that you would marry. There are many other traditions. Some of them are actually quite scary, and I can't mention them on this video because I might get demonetized, but there were different spells, there were different traditions, different ways of practicing divination to see what was in store for you. Halloween was a time where it was thought that divination was its strongest. This is also a time where spell work was regarded as being its strongest. So this new moon may be a time where you're focusing on manifesting something new under the new moon. New moons often represent times of new beginnings, of new energy, of new starts. And this new moon is in a trine to Saturn in Pisces, which adds a bit of mystical magic to it, as the sign of Pisces is also associated with the supernatural. Now, the trine to Saturn also means that you may be feeling that anything that begins around this time is something that you could commit to, something that you could take responsibility for, and something that you could absolutely dedicate your time to going forward, and something that you could be creating for the long haul. Now, in the sign of Scorpio, Scorpio is associated with secrets, power, and transformation. So under this new moon, you may be beginning something secretive. You may be beginning something that is quite private, particularly with Saturn in Pisces. That's the work that we do behind the scenes. And it can also be a time when you're actually wanting to share with another person. You're wanting to merge with another person, whether you're going into business with someone, whether you're getting into a relationship with someone, whether you're moving in with someone. This could be a beautiful new moon to merge with another person and bring your resources together and create something together. It can also be a time when you're launching a research project or some form of investigation under this new moon in Scorpio. Now, the biggest part of this new moon is that the sign of Scorpio is ruled in the traditional sense by Mars and in the modern sense by Pluto. And Mars and Pluto at the time of this new moon are in a building opposition that will be exact on November 3rd. And the building opposition will be happening at 29 degrees of Cancer and 29 degrees of Capricorn respectively. This Mars-Pluto opposition is happening at the crisis degrees of the sign of Cancer and Capricorn, the private life and the public life. So with this new moon being ruled by two planets which are in opposition at the crisis degree, this new moon really emphasizes the nature of death and rebirth cycles, of letting go to create something new. It is very intense, I will say. It is very intense, and it can be a very emotional time. Mars opposite Pluto is quite tricky in astrology because it can bring a lot of destructive energies if not utilized from a higher perspective. Now, the Mars-Pluto opposition is going to happen 3 times. This is the first time. It's happening on November 3rd, so 2 days after the new moon, but within the new moon's influence. It's going to be happening November 3rd. It's going to happen January 3rd. And when it happens January 3rd, it will be at 1 degree Mars in Leo and 1 degree Pluto in Aquarius. And then it will happen again in April 27th at 3 degrees Mars in Leo, 3 degrees Pluto in Aquarius. So this first opposition is happening on the Cancer Capricorn axis. The second 2 oppositions will be happening on the Leo Aquarius axis, but this can give us a preview of what is to come, this Mars-Pluto opposition. So what can the Mars-Pluto opposition bring under this new moon and within the 3 months ahead? So Mars is a planet associated with war, with conflict, with anger, with aggression, and with action. In the sign of Cancer, particularly at the crisis degree, this is about our heritage. This is about our territory. You may notice yourself that you're feeling more territorial over your property, over your land, over your family, maybe more defensive about your lineage or your culture or where you come from. Mars at 29 degrees of Cancer can also be a time where we're feeling very frustrated and very angry, either at those we live with, those that we're related to, or those in our bloodline even. If you're looking at family, ancestral karma, or lineage, or wounding in the lineage, this may be something that's coming up at the time of this opposition. It may not be anger at your family, it may be what has happened to your family, a sense of defensiveness and protectiveness over yourself, your family and your bloodline or your property. On the world stage, this can be where countries are more defensive and protective over their land, over their people, over their culture. So this can be where people are more defensive or reactive when it comes to conflict situations because of their home, because of their countries. The opposition to Pluto in Capricorn, Pluto at the final degree of Capricorn, Pluto will change signs into Aquarius the 19th of November for at least 20 odd years. So this is the final hurrah, and this opposition is here to really shake us up and say, have you let go yet? Have you changed? Are you willing to change? Mars in Cancer can be notoriously nostalgic, but what people fail to realize is that oftentimes Capricorn can be the most nostalgic sign of the two. It can, Capricorn sun moon rising people, you can often notice them talking about days gone by, romanticizing the past or glorifying the past, or if it's not that, having a real interest in antiques, antique furniture. Both signs are associated with nostalgia in the past. And so with Pluto being at 29 degrees of Capricorn, this can be longing for the way that things were, longing for the way that things used to be, the good old days, so to speak. And this can feel incredibly challenging when it comes to new energies coming in, new beginnings, new ways of living with Pluto moving into Aquarius. So there can be frustration and anger surrounding having to let go of the past, having to move forward. There can be power struggles. This can also represent itself in terms of a push-pull dynamic when it comes to public and private life. Say, for example, you work remotely for a big corporation, and working remotely has worked since 2020 for you, and it's worked for your life, and it's worked for everyone in the company, but suddenly the people in power have an idea that no, actually everyone should do as we say and go back to the office. And then there's this push and pull dynamic of, no, this doesn't work for me anymore, this doesn't work for my family, and there's no benefit to this, and there could be a push-pull. That can be one way that things play out, or it can be you're really trying to make these big changes at work for your family, for your sense of security, maybe just for buying a home, a property. And your family is saying, no, we'd actually rather you were here. We would rather you were in the house. And then there can be this confrontation in terms of who's right or how it's best balanced. Oppositions notoriously bring a lack of balance. It's where two opposing energies are trying to outdo each other or outwit each other or win against each other, especially in Mars and Pluto, because they're both planets associated with power and conflict. But with oppositions, there's always a place in the middle. The connecting line has a place in the middle, and it just means adjusting a little bit to balance these energies and perhaps taking out a stubborn approach. Although a stubborn approach is quite likely whenever we have the Leo and Aquarius oppositions. There can be a sense of resistance with Mars and Pluto. People can be very resistant to change, as I say, with these being very nostalgic signs. Mars is in shadow at the time of this opposition and at the time of this new moon. So please bear in mind that whatever you do, the actions that you take will have consequences that actually go on a little bit longer than you think, because Mars will be retrograding. In fact, the Mars retrograde cycle will not actually end fully until May. So you might notice that anything that you do now from anger, from a sense of destructiveness, will come back to bite you later. And you may notice that any conflicts that begin under this new moon, there'll be back and forth for quite a while. And it's quite you know, with Mars being in shadow, particularly being in Cancer, this can be a time where we're acting out of anger from the past rather than what the actual issue is. So be mindful of that. When a planet is in shadow, it is a great time to do shadow work. It is a great time to turn the energy inward and look at what you're so angry at, what you're so frustrated at, and give yourself time and space to breathe through that, to experience it, to let it out, whether that's through boxing, whether that's through the gym, whether that is through a run on the beach. Walking on the beach is a great one for Mars and Cancer, whether that is swimming, whatever the case may be. Being able to physically move the energy out of your body. It could even be stretching as a way of releasing anger that is trapped in the body, or that is, you know, perhaps spurring you to act differently. Mars in the crisis degree of Cancer can also be where it's a wonderful time with this opposition to release bitterness, to release old grudges, to release old resentments in your private life, in your public life, when it comes to your family, when it comes to your home, when it comes to your career, when it comes to property. Releasing anger and frustration in a health and safe way so that you can channel it into a more transformative, powerful new beginning, where you share, where you connect with someone else, where you can merge with other people, where you can actually meet others more deeply, or find yourself more deeper entrenched in a new beginning that is positive for you, that changes your life in a positive sense. So this Mars-Pluto opposition, it does have the opportunity for wonderful change and transformation if you utilize the energies well. If you allow yourself to tap into what's really making you angry, what's really making you frustrated, and how much you're maybe holding on to a past that is just gone, that is dead, that is not to be, that is to be respected, but something new must come in, something must be rebirthed, and that can be where you let go of the old to bring in the new. So it's a good new moon to really consider what is making you angry, what is making you mad, what is making you frustrated, and how is that stopping you having a new beginning. If you're mad or angry at an ex, how is that preventing you from connecting deeper to your partner or even getting in a new relationship? If you're really mad and angry at your family but you still want a relationship, how is that getting in the way of building bridges between you? It can be a bit of a struggle with these energies because someone will appear to be an opposition to you, someone will appear to be contradicting you, someone will appear to be opposing what you say, what you feel, what you do. You will feel challenged by another person, whether it be an individual, whether it be a company, whether it be a corporation, whether it be a government, whatever the case may be. You may notice that there is someone that is acting as a source of opposition, and you're being called to figure out what it really represents. What pattern is this in your life? Who does this represent from childhood? What feeling does this person represent? What is the challenge? And the interesting thing about the 4th house and the 10th house is that oftentimes our early life, our formative years, our relationship to our parents, our relationships to our siblings, our relationships to the home often actually play out in our career. So you may encounter someone who is very like your father in the workplace, and this may consistently drum up these feelings from childhood. Someone who was like your mother, someone who was like your sibling. A dynamic inevitably plays out in our career based on our upbringing and our private life. And there's been books written about this from a psychological perspective, and I'll see if I can find a link to one. I'm not sure that the title was appropriate enough to say on here, so I'll see if I can find a link to it. But it is interesting how it does replicate, and you may find that frustrations coming up in the workplace represent something deeper from childhood or the past that you're looking to rectify, remedy, or release under this new moon. I know that new moons are not necessarily times of release, that's more associated with full moons, but with the sign of Scorpio, there is a sense of death, rebirth, and regeneration where we're looking to incorporate something new by letting go of the past and releasing something from the past. Mars in Cancer is also an interesting one in this opposition to Pluto, because we may notice where certain structures, where even those in positions of power with Pluto in Capricorn. This is one way that this can absolutely play out, because Pluto at the crisis degree of Capricorn is going to be a time where we are exposed to the secrets, to the rot, to the corruption from those in positions of power, whether they be in government, whether they be billionaires, CEOs. We may also notice how much certain industries are linked in ways that we did not expect. Pluto at the 29th degree of Capricorn to me is the representation of a web connecting many individuals and many industries, and how they're so much more deeply connected than we think. And with Pluto being at the crisis degree of Capricorn, being triggered by Mars in Cancer, we can absolutely see where those in positions of power, those with a lot of power, influence, resources, money, have been corrupt in the way that they treat Mars in Cancer women, children, vulnerable in society. I actually saw an old episode of Nightlight Astrology, Nightlight Astrology, where he was mentioning, this was from a couple of years ago, I think this was from 2021, but he was mentioning the Mars and Pluto opposition and how it was actually linked to the awareness of Jeffrey Epstein, and how this was linked to him being brought out in the media, the awareness coming to the public about what he had been doing. So this may be a case because it's at the crisis degree where a lot of those different storylines are further being exposed. And it's interesting with this one too, because Pluto is actually conjunct the Mars of P. Diddy at the time of this opposition. 29 degrees of Capricorn is his Mars placement, and Pluto is currently transiting it. This opposition can absolutely bring more to light, or it can in some way bring some sort of oppositional energy toward him from somebody else, or it can bring more secrets out surrounding this particular new moon and this opposition. It can absolutely reveal the crimes against the vulnerable with this Mars-Pluto opposition at the crisis degree. And a lot of these with the crisis degree can be very shocking and can actually come out of nowhere. This can be people, experiences, corporations, companies that you maybe didn't expect with Pluto being at the 29th degree of Capricorn, because it unveils secrets that go down very deep. I did try and look for celebrity examples to use of those who have Mars-Pluto oppositions, but the one that I found worth mentioning was Mary Shelley, who was the author of Frankenstein. Frankenstein, the story of Dr. Frankenstein creating a monster. And she actually was born with a Mars-Pluto opposition, and her Pluto was natally at the crisis degree. It was at 29 degrees. And she wrote this fantastic work of art. She wrote it at 18, finished it at 19, which, if you're not aware, 19 is an 8th house perfection year. 8th house is associated with the spooky and the taboo. 19 is an 8th house perfection year. I'm not sure if I got that mixed up there when I said it, but also 18 is your nodal return. So this fantastic work of art that she created, one of the quotes of it that I thought was most appropriate for this new moon in Scorpio is the monster himself says, "Beware, for I am fearless and therefore powerful." And I think with this new moon in Scorpio, the fact that Mars and Pluto are in an opposition, it can be representative of where you let your fear get the best of you, whether you're being manipulated by someone else into feeling fear, or you're letting someone else manipulate you because of your fear, or to give you fear. This can be a wonderful new moon to choose to be more fearless, to choose to, and fearlessness is not blind ignorance of what is, but it may be a case where you're saying, I will be okay regardless, I will handle it. That's fearlessness. Saying that you'll be able to handle whatever changes come in, whatever power struggles come in, whatever opposition that you're facing. Choosing to handle it in a way that is dignified, in a way that is transformative, in a way that is powerful, is something that I think comes up with this new moon in Scorpio. I think her channeling with Pluto at the crisis degree and the Mars-Pluto opposition in her chart, her recognizing at such a young age that fearlessness is powerful. Whoever is trying to control you, whoever is trying to manipulate you, be it a person in a position of power, a position of authority, whether it be a ghost in your own mind, whether it be a fear that is unfounded at this particular point, whatever is holding you hostage in a sense of no power, this new moon is a time to rebirth and regenerate and take back that power by choosing to trust yourself, by choosing to believe that you will be okay no matter what. Obviously, there will be some people at the time of this opposition who are channeling bitterness, resentment, revenge is another energy that may be coming up under this new moon. Wanting revenge either in a fantasy or either in reality, resistance, power struggles, anger, frustration. This can absolutely be going on around you. People can take on the role of survivor. They can take on the role of perpetrator. They can take on the role of victim under this opposition. But as I say, it does represent the opportunity to release old resentments and bitterness and choose to stand in a place of empowerment with the new moon in Scorpio. Skeletons may come out of the closet, mysteries may be revealed, there may be more conversations about what is considered taboo, topics of death, sex, rebirth, taxes, these types of things may come up under this new moon as well. And it can be quite an intense time overall. Of course, this new moon and this Mars-Pluto opposition is occurring just before the election, the presidential election in the United States of America. And that election itself is going to be occurring just as Mars has moved out of Cancer into Leo. Nevertheless, in the shadow side, it'll be covering the degree that Mars will meet Pluto in Aquarius at in January. So yes, this opposition is happening early November and then early January. The date of the election, should it go ahead, and then the date of the inauguration, I believe, at least within a couple of weeks. The inauguration usually happens late January, I think. This is happening, this Mars opposition to Pluto is occurring around the time of the United States election, nevertheless. And the Mars-Pluto opposition can represent the projection of anger, rage, and destruction onto the other. Obviously, with an election, there are two candidates opposing each other, two different parties opposing each other. So it makes sense in theory, but this 29 degrees, this crisis degree, can absolutely surround themes of anger, rage, frustration when it comes to what you believe makes you a patriot, what you believe your country should be, what you believe your party should represent. And the Mars-Pluto opposition, with Pluto being at 29 degrees of Capricorn, can also represent frustrations and anger at the system, at the structures that are built, the archaic structures that perhaps the soul would rather see change, and things operate differently, different types of people taking power, the system changing so that it is not just, you know, one class of people, for example. It's just that the system changing in some way is what is desired, with Pluto being at the 29 degrees of Capricorn. It's about changing the structures and the foundations rather than the players, so to speak. Now, this opposition can, as I say, be the projection of anger onto the other, anger at the other. Rage and anger has more opportunity to turn destructive at the time of this election, particularly looking at January, as the Mars-Pluto opposition at the first degree of Leo and Aquarius is going to be triggering that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction back at the end of 2020 into early 2021 that actually coincided with the storming of the Capitol. So there can be some sort of repetitive energy with that type of anger, that type of frustration with this particular opposition. Your choices have consequences. Whatever it is that you choose to do, even if you're, you know, choosing to do nothing, this absolutely has consequences. Your rage, your frustration, your anger, and how you handle them will have a butterfly effect. Pluto can be associated with butterflies. Butterflies are about metamorphosis, the caterpillar going into the cocoon to emerge as a butterfly. There can be consequences that will either be obvious or not so obvious at the time of this opposition. Because Mars is in shadow, this energy will come back to haunt you if you act from a place of anger, aggression, and frustration. If you lash out, this is something that will not just simply be forgiven and go away. So, you know, you've been warned in that regard. But if you choose to react or act from a place of self-empowerment and self-control, there will be positive consequences for you. You will have broken a cycle. You will have changed a pattern. You will have set a different plan in place for the future, even if it is not necessarily obvious and there is a sense of delayed gratification. You will notice going into January, when the second opposition comes into force, that people who reacted at this time from anger and destruction will have consequences. There will be a longer storyline at play. One thing that I thought was particularly interesting about the US election, as someone who comes from over the pond, the date of this election happening on Guy Fawkes Night. So in the States, you may or may not be aware of Guy Fawkes Night. It is celebrated in England, and it is to do with, effectively every November 5th, it commemorates the failure of the gunpowder plot. Gunpowder, treason and plot, I believe they would refer it to, where Guy Fawkes essentially tried to blow up Parliament and the King of England. And he was caught that night. Now, I looked up the chart of that night, and what's also very interesting is that he was caught November 5th and he was executed at the end of January, which also coincides with the date of the election and the inauguration, I believe. You know, if it follows the usual process, I thought that was unusual as it was, so I looked up the chart of the gunpowder plot, Guy Fawkes night, back in the 1600s. I pulled up a chart for it, and I noticed that Uranus at the time of the election has returned to the same spot it was at the time of Guy Fawkes entering Parliament and being caught. What's interesting about this particular position is that it is conjunct Donald Trump's midheaven, and it is conjunct Kamala Harris's Jupiter, which rules her midheaven, which is weird. So I was thinking about this, and I feel that there is, you know, maybe there's just the metaphor if it goes off with a bit of a bang, although in their case it didn't go off with a bang at all because they were caught, but it can be a case where there are questions of perhaps the American equivalent to treason. Treason is obviously something against the monarchy, against the King of England, and interestingly too, Mars going back to Leo and doing a retrograde cycle in Leo and opposing Pluto can absolutely bring up conflict, struggle when it comes to the monarchy, challenges when it comes to the monarchy. That's a story for the Mars retrograde video. It seems as though there may be conversations that pertain to Guy Fawkes night, whether that is, as I say, whatever the American equivalent of treason is, traitorship, if that's a word, being a traitor, being a turncoat of some kind, or destructive energy, someone wanting to make changes in a destructive way, and how that backfired for them. So there seems to be a reminiscence, there seems to be something with Uranus there that is rebellious, that is explosive, that is challenging, that is an act of rebellion against those in positions of power. In fact, whenever I cast the chart to Guy Fawkes night, he was caught shortly after midnight, and that put the ascendant at around 29 degrees of Leo, which is Regulus, which is to do with the monarchy, those in positions of power and leadership. Uranus being in Taurus, the 10th house, is associated with rebellion against those in power. So there is a sense of expect the unexpected as well, particularly as the new moon that comes up 2 weeks later is actually going to be conjunct Uranus and is affecting both the chart of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. I feel like there are some pretty significant surprises in store in November, but I'll cover that in the November astrology video as well. There just seems to be some sort of connection to Guy Fawkes night, and Guy Fawkes is, whenever we have anti-government protesters, I think they call themselves anonymous, they wear Guy Fawkes masks. I think there was a movie called V is for Vendetta or something of that nature that featured those masks in it. But nevertheless, there seems to be some sort of synchronicity to Guy Fawkes night and Uranus returning to that position and hitting the chart of both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. You can't make it up. The connection is pretty strong. So as always, I'm going to pull a tarot card for this new moon in Scorpio and see what the collective message is for us at the time of this new moon. 10 of Swords. It's time to let something go, to embrace something new. Something is finished, something is over. And actually underneath we have the Fool, which is the first card of the deck. New beginnings, brand new beginnings, new start. And something is dead, it's decayed, it's over. Pluto is at the crisis degree of Capricorn. This old chapter is wrapping up for our lifetimes, and it's to do with structures, it's to do with governments, it's to do with leaders, it's to do with corporations, hierarchies, power structures, where there is rot, where there is corruption, where there's betrayal, where there's traitors, where there's treason. There must be another word for treason that is not linked to the monarchy, but it feels as though something is truly over. And this new moon is the time to embrace something completely new, something completely different, and start over. It's regeneration, it's rebirth, it's re-emergence, but it's knowing when it's done. It's, I think, for a lot of people, it's half the battle in new beginnings. New beginnings in their essence are easy, they're natural, but it's the endings, it's letting go, it's knowing when something's over, it's knowing when to leave that thing, it's knowing when to let go of that idea, that thing, that person, that place, that whatever. It's knowing when it's done is the challenge, and this new moon represents doing just that, to embrace something new. So that is what I have for this new moon. Timestamps are listed below for each of the individual zodiac signs. As always, I do suggest that you watch your ascendant sign, but you can watch your sun or your moon as well. So I hope you all have a wonderful new moon. Let me know what changes you are initiating under this new moon, what spells you're casting, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Aries, welcome to the new moon in Scorpio for your sign. So Aries, this new moon is happening in your 8th house and it is ruled by Mars and Pluto. Mars in your 4th house, Pluto in your 10th. Okay, so we have a new beginning happening in the 8th that tends to coincide with new arrangements financially, joint financial agreements, merging with someone in a financial sense, merging your resources. It could be getting a mortgage, it could be getting a loan, it could be figuring out a new avenue financially when it comes to those things, so paying off those things. A financial plan may be put in place, you might get a new accountant, or you might have a new situation coming up when it comes to taxes. Essentially, a new moon in the 8th is where we start to think, okay, how can I build long-term security for myself, especially with Mars being in the 4th of home and property situations. So maybe there's an agreement there, maybe there's a new start where you're getting a mortgage, or maybe you're investing in renovations, or maybe you're considering a new financial situation or agreement for the greater good of your family long term. Pluto's in your 10th, so this might be something that is also facilitated by the changes and transformations you're making career-wise, or the changes you want to make career-wise, or when it comes to your public image. So there are private and public tensions you may be experiencing at this time, Aries. You might be thinking, okay, well, I'm putting a lot of effort into my home and my family. How am I juggling this with my career, or vice versa? And you may find it feels at this time like it's a little impossible to make both ends happy, to make both ends fully satisfied. There are challenges in both sectors for you with Mars and Pluto. So Mars in the 4th may be saying you're having to put so much energy into your home, into your family. You may be feeling a little bit frazzled by this, and you might think, okay, I'm going to need to make some career changes to accommodate this. Or you might be making a lot of transformations at your job. There could be significant changes happening when it comes to your career, and you're thinking, how is this going to marry up with my home and family life, or even just downtime? Aries, it can feel a little bit like your private life and your public life are in moments of crises simultaneously. And that doesn't have to be, an extreme crisis. I don't mean that in a scary way. I just mean in terms of you're at this point where you know something needs to change. You need to act. You need to make something different. And I think for a lot of you, Pluto in the 10th, maybe your boss has changed, maybe your organization has changed, maybe your job has changed, maybe the way you feel about your career has changed, maybe your work situation. There are themes of power and control and how you feel you have it or you don't coming up pertaining to your career. It may also be a case with Mars being in your 4th house that you're really having to take some direct or affirmative action when it comes to your home situation, a property perhaps, maybe when it comes to your family. There may be some tension or challenges there, or you may just be feeling a bit run ragged, Aries, with all that you have to do in both areas. Maybe you're making big changes. Sorry, Saturn is squaring my Mercury right now, and I swear my brain is not working so well. You may be making big changes when it comes to your career or your professional life, and you may just be finding that this is going to change, your home life or your family life. And it can also be that there's a bit of frustrations if you're, maybe your workspace is changing, maybe you're doing up your home office and that's throwing things into disarray, or your boss is leaving and now you're thinking, what does this mean for my career? Am I going to have to take extra work, and how can I do this when I have a newborn at home, or something like that, significant changes. But this new moon primarily is focusing on joining forces with others. So maybe you need to ask your partner to be a little bit more active in something, or your spouse or your business partner, whatever the case may be. Maybe you need to ask someone for help a little more, or maybe you need to take out a loan or a mortgage, or maybe you need to refinance something at this time, Aries. That could be possibly something that you're doing. Just note, I don't give financial advice. Mars is going to go retrograde in December too, so you may feel a little like you're slowing down and you're not, your usual self. You usually have a lot of energy, but you're maybe not feeling that so much at the moment. Mars will go into your 5th house and retrograde back into your 4th. So these will be areas that you're reviewing. So if anything that I've just mentioned is pertaining to children, that could also be coming up in December. Your tarot card is the Death card, very appropriate for the 8th house, I have to say. Some of you, everything's changing. The 4th house and the 10th house, pretty significant houses, especially if this opposition at 29 degrees is happening on your midheaven. You may be finding that you're just ready to change everything, or everything is changing around you. And as cliche as it sounds, Aries, sometimes endings are opportunities for new beginnings. And I don't want that to be insensitive because I don't know what your situation is, but there may be something that is ending and beginning simultaneously for this particular new moon in you, for you, because that's the theme of this new moon. It's about letting go of the old, wrapping up old cycles, old ways of doing things, thinking about things, feeling about things, and bringing in a new way that feels, with that trine to Saturn, like you can maybe heal, or maybe you can let go and take hold of something simultaneously. Aries, that's what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Taurus, welcome to the new moon in Scorpio for your sign. So Taurus, this new moon is happening in your 7th house of relationships. So for you, there could be a new start when it comes to an existing relationship, or there could be the beginning of a new relationship. Both are quite possible under this new moon. And whether it's a phase in an existing relationship or it is the beginning of a relationship, it is likely that with the trine to Saturn that you're thinking about it in the context of long term. You know, Saturn is in your 11th house. You may be thinking in terms of goals, in terms of aspirations for the future. Are you aligned? Those may be things that if you're beginning a new relationship, you want to ask quite quickly or learn about quite quickly. Seeing if you have a shared vision of the future, it's more likely than not that you will with the trine to Saturn, but it may also just be a time to check in your relationship and see what the goals are for the future, see if you're still aligned on that path. It feels like when it comes to relationships, important partnerships, it does not have to be romantic. The 7th house is the house of relationships altogether, so it could be a friend, it could be a business partner, it could be anybody, but you are checking in to see if the future is solid, you know, because Saturn in Pisces for you is about figuring out what you want long term, what your aspirations and your goals are. And I think that you might be sort of wanting to broaden your horizons anyway. The reasons that I'm saying that is because this Mars Pluto opposition, which is a bit gnarly, it's happening on your 3rd house, 9th house axis. So the way that you think locally versus the way that you think globally. And that might seem a little bit confusing. But if you think about how when you travel, a lot of the time where you go, you can notice that you take on a different version of yourself. Your mindset changes based on the environment. And maybe you're getting into a relationship or starting a new connection with someone who's from somewhere different, and they broaden your horizons, or they just have a very different way of looking at the world. It doesn't mean that you don't share the same vision for the future, but you may find it a little bit challenging to what you know to be true, you know, what your local mentality is. With this, there can also be a bit of bickering and arguments going on with people, I think maybe about viewpoints of the world, more now than ever, especially if you're in the States. Obviously there's an election coming up and there can be very divisive opinions, and it could be a case that you're maybe engaging in some arguments with people where you really feel like, I can't understand why you see it that way, but I see it this way. You may also be trying to figure out how you can be in 2 places at once in your lifestyle, Taurus. Maybe you feel like you need to be in a certain country, but your heart's longing to go somewhere else. You're longing to change your location, but there's this push and pull of, oh, well, if I go there, how can I still be here when I need to be here, but I long to be there? There can be a bit of that going on. There can also be a bit of challenges when it comes to your thinking in general. You may one moment think, this is the way that it is in a very rational sense, and then on the other hand you might see it from a higher perspective, but it challenges what you know to be true. Your mind can be at odds with itself under this new moon, essentially, Taurus, because of that opposition. So you may want to start a new relationship, but maybe distance is a factor. You may want to begin a new chapter with a partner, but maybe you have very different mentalities about how to approach something, even if it's something that you both want. So there can be sort of a community thought perspective versus a more more broad horizon that you're looking at. It can also be that you get into some arguments with people that are neighbours, siblings. They can be kind of frustrating. You might be changing your perspective on how you feel about them. But it can just also be that communication is not necessarily going so well with Mars being in the 3rd. And it's like you don't understand the other person's perspective. It seems too broad. You're thinking, but I said this. and you've taken it that way, you may just not understand it completely. And it could lead to some significant arguments, but it could actually change the way that you and another person think completely, Taurus. Your tarot card, Two of Cups. I feel like for a lot of you, there could be a new relationship on the horizon, a new connection, a new companion, someone you've mutual feelings with, someone you're in agreement with, in sync. And you may be forming quite a cozy connection with someone while, you know, bickering with your neighbours over the fence. It could be something of that nature, where you feel like you're very connected to one person, syncing your vision of the future together, while, you know, there's a lot of chaos going on around you. That is what I have for you, Taurus. I'll talk to you soon. Hi Gemini, welcome to the new moon in Scorpio for your sign. Gemini, this new moon is happening in your 6th house. So around the time of this new moon, in the few days before, the few days after it, you might be beginning something new when it comes to your health. So maybe around this time you have a doctor's appointment, a medical appointment. Maybe you are beginning a new chapter when it comes to your health, looking after your health, looking after your well-being. You could be seeing a doctor, you could be seeing some sort of physio, or someone who's really going to help you get on track when it comes to your well-being. You're beginning a new chapter when it comes to your well-being. With Saturn being in trine to this new moon, it might be for the benefit of your bones, the benefit of your age, the benefit of your teeth. That could be something that you're thinking. And it may also be something that helps you work. You know, Saturn being in the 10th, this could be something that helps you work better. So maybe you're, you know, in a physically demanding job and you have to see, you know, say for example, you were a personal trainer. You would have to go to a sports therapist every so often. So that could be something that you're doing to help facilitate your career with Saturn in the 10th. But it can just also be so that you can show up to your commitments in general. Maybe you want to get healthier because you're a parent and you want to be there for your kid and be able to play with them for longer or something, you know, because running after kids can be very physically exhausting. So maybe you're just wanting to get into the best shape so that you can be present for them and be around with them when they need you. It could also be that some of you are starting a new job that you could see some pretty serious long-term potential with. You could see yourself rising up in the ranks. You could see yourself getting to the top of the ladder, so to speak, or gaining more prestige. It could be a new role within your company. It could be a new job in general. But I feel like for a lot of you, this is going to be something that changes your routine, and I think is going to help you show up to the world and be seen. You know, maybe some of you have been feeling a little behind the scenes because you've not been well, and this is the new moon where you think, I'm going to prioritize my health so I can show up, so that I can be seen. With the 6th house, some of you could also be getting a new pet. That happens sometimes with new moons in the 6th house. Now, the rulers of this new moon, Mars and Pluto, the traditional ruler Mars and the modern ruler Pluto, are in your financial houses. So for some of you, you may be starting something health-wise that you're going to be investing money in. You're going to be putting finances towards, and you're going to be perhaps for some of you getting a loan or getting insurance or getting there could be something changing financially when it comes to this new moon with Mars and Pluto. Mars being in the 2nd house and Pluto being in the 8th. There could be a bit of a power struggle going on when it comes to your financial situation. This may be internal, or this may be with another person. When it comes to assets, potentially, there could be a bit of frustration. With Mars being in the 2nd, it can certainly make you more focused on making money or spending money. Just bear in mind that anything you spend now may come up again later, or you may want to return it later, particularly in the new year, just because Mars retrograde in the 2nd. And Mars will go into your 3rd house in December, but it will retrograde into your 2nd again next year. So you're going to be reflecting on anything you spend money on. With Pluto in the 8th house, I think a lot of you could be transforming, you know, maybe joint financial matters. Maybe you're remortgaging something. Maybe you're getting a mortgage. Maybe you're selling. Maybe you're dividing assets, or whatever that case may be for you, Gemini. But it could also be, you know, rethinking how you spend money, how you make money, and also what's important to you, what your values are. Sometimes when people make changes for their health or their well-being, they reflect on what matters the most for them. With Mars being in the 2nd, for you that may be the case. You may be thinking, I want to make these changes because of, and then a very noble reason of why you want to make these changes. It's unlikely to be primarily for aesthetics or something. It feels quite meaningful to you why you're making these changes, but they're not necessarily the easiest changes to make. And I think you might be a little bit scared to make them with Pluto in the 8th. You know, maybe you've had a health scare, so you're making changes. Maybe you are very afraid of not being in good health in the future, so you're making changes. Pluto in the 8th can be fear for fear's sake. It can be where you're feeling fear and you don't necessarily know why. You can even be afraid of fear with Pluto in the 8th. So it could be that maybe you're wanting to transform to take back a little bit of control when it comes to a phobia or a fear, you know, thinking a worst case scenario. Your tarot card, Gemini, is the 3 of Cups, which is about social gatherings, good times, connecting with others. I could see you maybe, I mean, this is happening November 1st, maybe going to a really good Halloween party, getting together with friends, getting together with people that are like-minded, sharing together, being social, and connecting with others under this new moon. Could also be that maybe you're getting new people in the workplace that you're going to get on quite well with, and people that are going to be quite supportive of your goals with that trine to Saturn in the 10th. That's what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Cancer, welcome to the new moon in Scorpio for your sign. Cancer, this new moon is happening in your 5th house. So this could be the beginning of a new romance for some of you. For others of you, the 5th house is the house of children, so this could be a pregnancy, a birth, or a new chapter with a child in your life. Maybe they're starting something in their life that's quite exciting, but either way, your romantic life or your children's lives could be at the forefront with this new moon in the 5th. The 5th house is also to do with creativity and art. So for some of you, you could be starting an artistic project. You could be working on something creative. You could be really figuring out what you want to create, what you want to do, to channel your emotions perhaps with this new moon being in Scorpio, channeling your emotions into art or creativity. You could be simply wanting to go to the theatre or an art show, or just really feel connected to art itself with this new moon in the 5th house. But for some of you, yes, it could be a new romantic relationship, particularly because the rulers of this new moon, Mars and Pluto, are in your 1st and 7th house. So perhaps you are making a move and asking somebody out with Mars being in the 1st, or perhaps someone is really into you with Pluto in the 7th. It feels as though for a lot of you with this opposition though from Mars and Pluto, you might be having a tough time figuring out how to balance what you need to do with what someone else feels. It sort of seems with Mars being in the 1st house opposite Pluto in the 7th, there could be a bit of a power struggle when it comes to an important relationship in your life or the concept of relationships. Mars going through the 1st can sometimes give us this somewhat, it can make us more self-focused because that's where our energy is going with Mars. Where Mars goes, our energy flows. So in the 1st house for you, that's putting the focus back on you. But you may feel that there's somebody in your life. Now, this does not have to be a romantic partner. It could be anybody. But there's somebody in your life that you feel is either trying to control you or trying to manipulate you, or, you know, they might even not be trying to do that, but they may be coming from a very fearful place. It feels as though, Cancer, you may be feeling like you need to do something for yourself. You need to do something for your health, for your well-being, for your own sake. And you feel someone else is opposing you, or something else even. Pluto can be, you know, someone or something that has power over you. So you may be feeling a little bit like you want to make these changes. And I think a lot of you are longing for a little bit more creativity or just a little bit more love and happiness in your life. You're really figuring out what's going to make you happy. And this may be diametrically opposed to what somebody else wants or needs. Again, it does not have to be a relationship. It absolutely could be. But it could just be that you feel as though I want to make these changes, but so-and-so, they have more power than me and they're saying no. You know, it could be your boss, or it could be a spouse, it could be anybody, but you may actually be finding that you're taking action that's best for you that triggers a fear response in someone else. You could have a spouse or a partner or an important relationship in your life who's really struggling at the moment. They could be really feeling afraid, you know, overtaken with fear, overtaken with phobias, and you're trying to do the best that you can and you feel like, I can't make you not scared. That could be something else that's happening. at this time for you, Cancer. You're dealing with someone else's fear. Meanwhile, you're trying to look after your health and your well-being. You know, Mars is there in your first house. I would say under this new moon in the 5th house, make sure to prioritize having fun, having a laugh, having a good time, having a giggle. Like, do it. The trine to Saturn in your 9th house, Cancer, is making me think, you know, maybe you're making plans to travel, or you're thinking of getting an education. You're thinking of doing these things though through the context of love and happiness, what would make you happy. So if you're maybe thinking with Saturn in the 9th, I want to sign up to this course, I want to learn about this, I want to study this, because it would make you happy. That may be something that you're dealing with. Could also be that for one of you, maybe a child is moving, maybe a child is going abroad, maybe a child is going to university, and that could be what the new beginning in your 5th house is as well. Let's pull you a tarot card, Cancer. We have the High Priestess, and it's actually in reverse. So it may feel a little bit at the moment, Cancer, with this new moon in Scorpio and the Pluto opposition to Mars, you might feel a little bit like there's some missing information. Something is being kept in the dark. Something is being suppressed. Maybe you're suppressing your intuition. Maybe you're withholding information, or maybe you feel a little bit disconnected. The High Priestess in astrology, it does actually connect to the moon in Scorpio, and this is a new moon in Scorpio. So maybe some of you are perhaps beginning a romantic relationship that you're keeping secret. Or perhaps you're beginning a new creative hobby that you're keeping secret. Maybe you're beginning something at this time, Cancer, that you're wanting to keep secret. You wouldn't be the only one with this new moon, I can tell you that. But it can also be just as equally so in the run up to the full moon that secrets come out. So be mindful of that. That's what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Leo, welcome to the new moon in Scorpio for your sign. So Leo, this new moon is happening in your 4th house of home and family. And this can be to do with your living situation. It can also be to do with the past and your roots and where you come from, your ancestry, your heritage. These may be things that are of more interest to you at this time. So maybe some of you are going to begin with the new moon being in the sign of Scorpio, the investigator. Maybe you're going to be investigating your family tree or your lineage or your roots. Maybe you're feeling a bit curious about your background, maybe from a health perspective, maybe from a historical perspective, you're more curious about where you come from and how you got here on Earth. So you may be a little bit more curious or investigative about that. You may also be perhaps looking into buying a new property or renovating the home or beginning a new chapter in the home. There may also be a new beginning coming up with a family member. That can sometimes be where you're having a bit of a reset on a relationship in your household. Maybe someone's moved in, maybe you have a new roommate, maybe you have a roommate leaving, maybe you're beginning some new work on the home, or just for some of you it could simply be redecorating, moving the furniture around, changing the energy. With the new moon in Scorpio, it could be that you're wanting to change the energy in your home and you feel that you just need to change something. So moving the furniture around, changing the color schemes or something of that nature may be what you're doing around the time of this new moon. So that's the main focus of this new moon, new beginnings or setting new intentions when it comes to home and family affairs. Now, it can also be under this new moon, because the rulers of this new moon, in the modern sense and the traditional sense, Mars and Pluto, are both going to be getting together in an opposition November 3rd, and they're going to be happening in your 12th house Mars and your 6th house Pluto respectively. So Mars going through the 12th house for you, Leo, is ordinarily pretty focused on facing your fears. When Mars goes through the 12th house, you might have some subconscious fears come up. You may sometimes feel yourself being a bit triggered and not being so sure why. You could find yourself getting into arguments with people about spiritual matters. You could find yourself getting in debates with people about spiritual matters. You could find that you're at odds with your beliefs. It can also be that you're angry at people from the past. You might notice anger from the past coming up with Mars going through the 12th house. And it's opposing Pluto in the 6th house, which is where you're looking to make some changes when it comes to your health. I have noticed a lot of Leo risings with Pluto going through the 6th house have been dealing with health issues, health crises. If you have not, I'm not saying that you will, by the way. I would not speak that into existence for anybody. But if you have been dealing with that, this might be a time when you're really feeling as though you need to perhaps address it, not necessarily in an absolute fashion, but you might feel yourself needing to address the psychological or the spiritual components of it. You know, maybe you're curious of digging, as I say, a little bit into your family tree and saying, is this hereditary? Is there something hereditary that I need to worry about, that I need to make changes of? You might also be finding that you're looking at it from a holistic perspective of what emotions are trapped in the body, you know, that kind of thing. Again, I'm not saying you're doing that absolutely in, you know, rejection of any other type of normal healthcare. Not saying that. I'm just saying that you might be having a bit of an oppositional energy where you're wanting to heal spiritually, but you're also wanting to heal physically, and you're noticing the connection between the two, albeit you're maybe a bit frustrated about it. It can also be that there's changes, if you are still working, there's changes in the workplace that you feel are maybe resulting in some power struggles. The 6th house and the 12th house can sometimes be where you find people in the workplace are talking about you behind your back. You're learning who's your friend and who's your enemy. And that can just be true of many walks of life with this axis, but you might feel a little bit betrayed by someone in the workplace or someone that you regard as a colleague or an employee. And they may have been hiding something. With Mars being in the 12th, a lot of the time the energy can be a bit sleepy. So if you're feeling you're not, you know, yourself health-wise, if you're feeling quite tired, you may be feeling a little bit resentful of the fact you need to rest a little bit more. It might annoy you to feel that bit off your feet. But Mars will be going into your sign next month, and you might notice when it does that you have a little bit of an energy boost. But I think a lot of the themes for this at the moment, Leo, is being okay with conserving your energy and choosing your battles for the sake, you know, maybe choosing to ignore certain battles for the sake of your own energy levels could be something that's important for you at this time as well. But New Moon in the 4th, absolutely, this could be a time to make changes or experience changes in your home and your living situation. Oh, I need to pull you a card. I nearly forgot. Let's get a card for Leo. Okay, so 5 of Pentacles in reverse, out of the woods. Some of you could be rebuilding something in a home, restructuring in a home, definitely making changes. I think you're at a point of acceptance with this card and recovery. This card actually says out of the woods, so you may be at a turning point with something, Leo, where you're prepared to look ahead and embrace positive changes. That's what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Virgo, welcome to the new moon in Scorpio for your sign. So Virgo, this is happening in your 3rd house. So this may be around the time of this new moon that there is perhaps an event coming up in your local neighborhood, perhaps in your community. There could be a lot going on in your community, maybe for Halloween. It can also be that you're perhaps beginning a new chapter in your community. You know, maybe you're joining a local choir or a local group or your neighborhood watch, or your, you know, you could be getting more involved in your local community or your local neighborhood, Virgo. And as I say, new moons and full moons can sometimes coincide with events, so there may be an event locally that you're attending. This can be a new beginning when it comes to siblings as well. There could be a new chapter occurring there. This new moon is in a trine to Saturn in your 7th house. So I feel like for a lot of you, you could be making a very meaningful connection with a neighbor. You could be resetting a relationship with a sibling that is more meaningful, that is maybe more connected if there's been some distance or isolation with Saturn. And it could be that you're getting involved in a local group or a community event that is perhaps quite meaningful to you, and you could be working in it for the long haul, Virgo. If you're looking to meet someone romantically, it could be someone that you know locally, someone that is from your local area, someone who's maybe even a neighbor, someone who is it could also be the 3rd house can be related to social media, so this could be someone sliding into your DMs, or you sliding into someone else's, or something of that nature, Virgo. This can also be to do with a new way of thinking, and this could be a new way of thinking pertaining to relationships with Saturn in the 7th as well. But I have to mention for this new moon that the rulers Mars and Pluto are in an opposition. They're in a building opposition that is exact in the 3rd at the crisis degree. For you, of your 11th house and your 5th house, so friends and lovers. There can be an opposition. You may perhaps learn that someone has, a friend maybe has feelings for you, someone in a group that you're a part of has feelings for you that maybe you don't necessarily reciprocate. There could be a friends to lovers pipeline that you regret with this opposition. I feel like with Mars being in the 11th house, for a lot of you, it could be that if you're getting into arguments with people, it could be your friends, it could be your groups, it could be your peers, it could be perhaps to do with visions of the future that you disagree with others on. There could be, with the opposition to Pluto in the 5th, maybe your romantic interest or your romantic relationship is having a power struggle with one of your friends. Maybe your friends don't like who you're dating. Maybe you have children who are having trouble with their friends. There's power struggles going on there that you're aware of with the 11th house and the 5th house being in this opposition. It could be with Pluto being in the 5th house that you have fears. Maybe you're fearful for your children, or maybe you're fearful of having children, or maybe you are fearful of love, of romance, or maybe you're a little bit scared of being happy. Sometimes happens with Pluto in the 5th as well. It could be that you have these fears maybe surrounding what makes you happy, or you're drastically changing all the time what makes you happy with Pluto being in the 5th house. Bear in mind, Pluto leaves this sector for good November 19th. But maybe you're having a little bit of fear when it comes to being happy or having happiness or having love or being in love, or you fear surrounding having children, or you may be making decisions there that says, well, actually, I've decided this wouldn't make me happy, this will make me happy, big decisions about what makes you happy. And this might not be what your people agree with. This might not necessarily be what your friends agree with, and there could be a bit of an opposition. Or this may change your vision of the future in some way, shape, or form too, and you may need to make changes there as well, Virgo. That could be something that's coming up at this time. But yeah, people that you're friends with, people that you're in groups with could be challenging you. You could be feeling quite frustrated with them at times. But primarily this new moon is about a new start when it comes to siblings, neighbours, your local community, your relationship to social media as well. For some of you it could be online dating because of that trine to Saturn in your 7th, or it could be meeting somebody on the internet in some way, shape or form, Virgo. Your tarot card is the 9 of Cups. So wish fulfillment. That's nice. This is about wishes coming true, feeling happy, feeling satisfied. In this card, they're all drinking wine, so you might be attending an event locally, you might be attending a dinner, drinks, or something of that nature, or you may be celebrating something that you have achieved at this time. I think for a lot of you, you may also be beginning a very fulfilling journey when it comes to maybe putting your work online, or putting yourself out there online as well as something that might be working out for you at this time, Virgo. That's what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Libra, welcome to the new moon in Scorpio for your sign. Libra, this new moon is happening for you in your financial house. So it's happening in the 2nd house, which pertains to your earnings, your income, your spending habits as well, essentially your relationship with money. This house is also associated with values and what truly matters to you though, and your self-confidence. So if it's not affecting you financially, it can be to do with your self-worth, your self-esteem and your self-value. So perhaps for some of you, you're getting a new source of income out of this new moon, creating a new source of income. Maybe some of you are making financial changes. You're setting up a financial plan or a savings account, which could be very positive with the new moon in Scorpio. Perhaps you are wanting to generate more financial security, so you're choosing a better bank. And it could be with Scorpio, it could be surrounding the energy of what is most secure. Where is my money the most safe? Where is it the better off, to put it? So some of you could be getting a new bank account, a new savings account, that type of thing. Some of you might also be, your paycheck may be changing. Maybe you got a promotion or something of that nature and you're getting your first paycheck under this new moon in Scorpio. You could be making a significant purchase or buying something that really matters to you under this new moon, Libra. With the trine to Saturn in your 6th house, maybe some of you are beginning a new role, or your work commitments are paying off financially. Maybe there's a new financial beginning when it comes to your health. Maybe you receive money because of a health condition. And it could be that perhaps some of you are with making greater commitments to your job, you are maybe making more money from it. But all the same, Libra, it feels as though there's a new financial beginning happening for you, or you're simply discovering what truly matters and you're committing to that. With Saturn in the 6th, maybe it's health. Maybe some of you are going to be looking for a job that is more long-term and more in alignment with your value system, something that you feel you can really feel good about when you sleep at night, that kind of thing. Maybe you're reconfiguring what your career goals are, your work goals, or what you need in order to feel good, to feel self-confidence at work. Sometimes with Saturn going through the 6th house, it can be a time that's very challenging in work. It can be associated with job loss. It can be associated with not feeling confident at your job, feeling like you can't do your best, you can't work as hard as you'd like, or you don't feel the desire to do so. It can be associated with absences with work as well. So this might be a time when you're really figuring out, why do I not want to go to work anymore? Or if I'm looking for a new job, what do I need it to be? What kind of company do I need to work for, or do I need to work for myself? Those kind of questions are coming up. You're looking at it from quite a meaningful perspective, Libra. I will mention there are some challenges when it comes to your private versus public life. Much like Aries risings, you're experiencing the Mars Pluto opposition in your 10th house and your 4th. So for you, Mars is transiting your 10th house, which can be very challenging. With Mars in the 10th, Saturn in the 6th, you have the malefics when it comes to your working situation, which can be tricky. So you may be feeling at work as though people are challenging you. You could be feeling angry or frustrated with jobs, with job searching. You could be feeling angry or frustrated with a boss. They could be feeling angry or frustrated with you. You could be struggling with self-employment. Mars going through the 10th. The opposition to Pluto in the 4th feels that then you're also experiencing changes and transformations when it comes to your home or your living situation, or at the very least fears surrounding your home or your living situation. You may be feeling the need to make a change, make a move. You could be having to move, even for some of you. But it feels as though with this opposition, you're on the cusp of a lot of change. Pluto's going to move into Aquarius. Mars is going to move into Leo. Mars is going to move back to Cancer in the new year. But when they're about to change signs, you feel a sense of urgency to wrap up a particular chapter. So maybe you have been really angry about your working situation, and you're feeling inspired then to make change or take some sort of action. Maybe with Pluto being in your 4th house, you feel it's time to make changes when it comes to your home or your relationship to your family. And Pluto's going to move into Aquarius, and you're really going to figure out, well, you're going to begin a journey of figuring out what would make you happy and be open to the fact that might change quite a bit with Pluto in Aquarius. Libra. But this new moon does seem to be about focusing on establishing some form of financial security for yourself, or focusing on your finances, maybe starting a savings account because you're realizing you want to move jobs. I saw this tweet from Ricky Gervais, and I have to mention, he doesn't like astrology, it's not for him, and that's fair enough. But he had this tweet about being 37, and 37, if you're not aware, it is your second nodal return. It's a very pivotal time in anyone's life. You may be 37 listening to this, which may be why you're meant to hear this story. But even if you're not, this applies. He mentioned that he was laid off from his job, and he was given some money, as you do when you get laid off sometimes. He said he knew that if he was careful with this money, he could pursue being a comedian for 6 months and see how it went. And obviously that worked out really very well for him. So in his case, and maybe in your case, you're figuring out how to make your money work so you can figure out at the same time what you want long term. Now obviously he was 37 in very different times, but it could be that you're maybe figuring out, okay, well, I'm going to use this amount of savings or money to pursue something else. Just because Mars and Pluto in the 4th and the 10th house in the 4th for you, maybe you're thinking of making significant changes career-wise, and you're wanting to try something new, Libra. Could be the case for some of you. Not all for you, but not all of you, but could be some of you. Your tarot card is the 6 of Swords, which you'll be pleased to know. I'm sorry, Saturn is exactly squaring my Mercury, and I am just not very sharp with my communication at the moment. 6 of Swords, it says better times ahead. tranquility, overcoming hardship, conflicts resolved, becoming stable, restoration and peace. I think that's a really nice omen for some of you, that there are better times ahead. If you're feeling quite fraught or tense at the moment, better times will come in, Libra. Just remember, the South Node is going to leave your sign in January. And the South Node can really be where we're letting go of parts of ourselves that no longer serve to make way of something new, make way for something new. And if you are looking for a job or a new source of employment, the North Node going into Pisces is very promising for that. That is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Scorpio, welcome to the new moon in your sign. You're the star of this show, especially Scorpio risings. This new moon's happening in your first house. So essentially, Scorpio, this is a bit of a reset when it comes to your image, when it comes to your approach to life, when it comes to your life in general. New moons in the first house are often times to check in with our life and see how we're feeling about it. If we feel off path, if we feel on track, if we want to make some changes. The trine to Saturn in the 5th, Scorpio, says that you're really focused on committing to something for yourself that would make you happy. Or maybe something that would make you a better parent. Or maybe something that would make you more committed to your creativity. I feel like you're really focusing on your image, your personal branding, and this might be a reset. You might have something to put out there, you might have something you're beginning just for you, something that you work on independently. But I do think the nature of it is wanting to do something that makes you happy. Now, your rulers, Mars and Pluto, are in an opposition. So at a mundane level, this new moon may be bringing changes to image. You might be focusing on buying some new clothes. You might be focusing on changing your hair, changing your makeup. You might be incorporating more red or black into your aesthetic, as they are Scorpio colors. It doesn't have to be, but it may be the case. So while there could be physical changes, image changes, you may feel a little bit out of sorts when it comes to what you believe. Mars and Pluto are in this opposition, and Mars is in your 9th house and Pluto's in your 3rd. So Pluto in the 3rd house, you're wanting to transform when it comes to the way that you think. Pluto in the 3rd can generate, especially at the crisis degree where it's at now, fear-based thinking, fear of worst case scenario. You may feel a little bit like you're having to address some fears, some phobias. You may feel that your mindset is a little bit maybe more suspicious or paranoid, or you're trying to control what you think or control what someone else thinks as well, or other people are trying to control what you think. You may be dealing with some psychological triggers when it comes to communication and conversations. If you have this, because some people do, they feel they can't speak up about certain things, or they think when they do a certain thing happens, they have these beliefs. Essentially, when it comes to how you think, what you say, how you communicate, Pluto here is saying it's a good time to make a change and do some shadowy work when it comes to Pluto being in the 3rd. But I also think a lot of you are really wanting to transform your thinking. If you were, very much raised in a particular community that thought a certain way, you're maybe realizing this doesn't work for you anymore. And it could also be that you're perhaps with Mars in your 9th, you're learning a lot, you're exploring a lot of different perspectives. You might be arguing about or with people in foreign countries or foreign affairs. Mars going through the 9th can sometimes bring arguments with people about religion, about geography, about foreign affairs, about belief systems. Mars being in the 9th house can do that. It can also be arguing with people while you're traveling, or getting angry in a foreign country, or just, these are the different topics that can make you angry, or this can be where you're putting action. Mars is a malefic, so the anger can sometimes get the best of us. And I think you could be arguing with people about your belief system, or what they think or what you think, and you could be feeling a little bit like people are trying to control what you say or what you think, or people are talking a lot about you, but it's sort of paranoid and conspiratorial. Saturn is squaring my Mercury, and I just do not have the same brain power that I feel I usually have. So my words are not great. It's kind of that Ralph Wiggum quote in The Simpsons where he says, "If me fail English, that's impossible." That's how I feel right now. But you could be arguing with people about different belief systems, different topics and things like that, Scorpio. So be mindful that that may be something that comes up under this Mars-Pluto opposition. Let's get you a tarot card. Ace of Wands, new passion, a passionate start. Yeah, this is very new. There's something that excites you, Scorpio, or you're wanting more excitement, or you're wanting to begin something with a bit of spark, a bit of chemistry, you're wanting a bit of fun, you're feeling very inflamed and passionate with this new moon in your sign. I like that for you. And I think a lot of you may be beginning something new. And I do think for a lot of you, you could be incorporating more red into your wardrobe or your makeup or your hair or your shoes or your socks or something of that nature. That's what I have for you, Scorpio, and I will talk to you soon. Hi, Sagittarius. Welcome to the new moon in Scorpio for your sign. So Sagittarius, this new moon is happening in your 12th house. So if you're beginning something, if you're initiating something, it feels like it is behind the scenes, something that you've been working on secretly. You may have a secret to share as well with this new moon, something that you want to put out in the open. But I feel for most of you, it would be more likely that you're working on something behind the scenes or initiating something behind the scenes. Some of you may be feeling a little bit more insular and introverted and focusing on your healing, focusing on working through your subconscious, maybe spurred on by an unusual dream, or you may be deciding under this new moon that you want to begin a process of letting go. That can be a decluttering emotionally, spiritually, physically. Maybe some of you are doing some kind of cleanse. It can also be that you're decluttering your home. There is a trine to Saturn in the 4th. So I think for a lot of you, you might be letting go of some stuff physically pertaining to the home. With Saturn in the 4th, maybe you're moving and you're wanting to take a more minimalistic approach to your home or a more seamless approach to your home. And perhaps you are therefore getting rid of a lot of stuff or donating a lot of stuff or something of that nature. And it could be that you're saying goodbye to a home. The 12th house is the place of goodbyes. So maybe you're leaving somewhere to go somewhere else with the trine to Saturn in the 4th. But either way, Sagittarius, you may be having a little bit of a grieving process, even if it's minimal. Letting go of something, letting go of some stuff, wanting to declutter. And some of you could be beginning a new spiritual journey. So maybe you're wanting to see a psychic, a shaman, an astrologer, a doctor, anything that is linked to healing in some capacity, but more likely from the soul perspective. You're wanting to heal from a soul's perspective. So the 12th house would more be where you're going to a Reiki healer, an energy healer, or something of that nature. Now, this new moon, it's a bit tricky because Mars and Pluto are in this opposition and it's not a pleasant one. The opposition is happening in your 8th house and your 2nd house. So there can be power struggles when it comes to money and assets. There can be some challenges there. With Mars being in the 8th house, you could be feeling a bit stressed, a bit aggravated, a bit angry when it comes to loans, mortgages, inheritance, joint financial relationships. They could be a source of tension. They could be a source of fear. With the opposition to Pluto in the 2nd, you could be feeling quite worried about financial relationships, big purchases. Pluto in the 2nd can be very big purchases. And at the 29th degree, you may be feeling a sense of urgency with this. You have to make it now. It has to be this. You have to change this. You're becoming very aware of where you need to make some sort of financial changes, Sagittarius, or how your joint financial relationships are working out. And you may be having power struggles with another person when it comes to your finances, or when it comes to the money that you receive from others or the money that you earn yourself. And I do think with Pluto being in the 2nd, you're doing some shadow work when it comes to your own way of making money or spending money. You know, this sort of opposition is where you could find out your spouse did a big purchase behind your back and you're annoyed about it, or they find out that you did. And there can be a bit of a power struggle when it comes to money and financial relationships, or even just values. With Mars going through the 8th house as well, sometimes that can be a time where we have to face some sort of fear. For you, it's part of a retrograde cycle. So it can be that you feel particularly fearful when it comes to joint financial relationships or mortgages or loans. Because Mars is going to be going retrograde, you might be rethinking these as well in the new year and reflecting on them, or maybe needing to make some changes if you are experiencing big financial changes now, the changes may continue because of the Mars retrograde period, but now is the time you're feeling an urgency to act or make something change. Yeah, we just had the Nine of Swords for you. Mental anguish. You're feeling kind of nervous. You're feeling quite anxious. Maybe some of you are experiencing with the 12th house insomnia, sleep troubles. The Nine of Swords famously features a woman that has woken up in her bed and she's stressed. She's maybe had a bad nightmare. She's maybe worried about something and can't sleep. She's maybe dealing with high cortisol levels that wake her up at odd hours. I think for a lot of you with this new moon in the 12th, you could be starting a new sleep schedule. I just want to say, I actually got a lavender candle. It's soya wax and it is essential oil, so it's better for you than regular candles. It's not imitation lavender, but I lit it last night for the first time before I went to bed, and I had the deepest sleep I've had in a really long time. I can't recommend it enough, and it's not sponsored. I'm not telling you who it's by or anything like that. I just noticed the effects that the lavender had on me sleeping, and I really appreciated it. Still had a nightmare though, but I really appreciated the deep sleep of it all. And I actually think the nightmare was quite insightful. Sometimes very vivid dreams or nightmares can give you a clue as to what's going on within you, and it can help you with the 12th house let go of some stuff from the past as well. That's what I have for you, Sagittarius, and I will talk to you soon. Hi Capricorn, welcome to the new moon in Scorpio for your sign. So Capricorn, this new moon is happening in your 11th house of friendship. So around this new moon, maybe you're getting together with friends. Maybe there's a new chapter beginning for you with a friend in a particular friendship that you already have. Maybe some of you are making a new friend as well. It's something that's entirely possible. With this new moon being in your 11th house, maybe you're joining a group. Maybe you're focusing on a long-term goal or a vision. I love new moons in the 11th house for making vision boards or manifestation lists or wish lists, Capricorn, especially because this one's in a trine to your ruler in the 11th, and not in the 11th, in the 3rd house. So you may notice yourself speaking things into existence or making a list and checking it twice. You might find yourself making a list or writing things down, journaling, scripting, all that sort of stuff. If you're into that, you might not be, but if you are, it's a good time to make a vision board and focusing on your manifestations with a new moon in the 11th house. Now, you could be joining a new group, you could be making new friends, it could be to do with your local community, it could be for some of you through school or through a class with Saturn in the 3rd. You're really putting your energy into learning, Capricorn. Saturn in the 3rd, take classes, get involved in your local community, go out and about in your local community. You don't have to go far, you can, but you might find yourself really wanting to immerse yourself locally, or you may be focusing on learning languages even for some of you, or taking more classes, or sort of expanding your mind with Saturn going through your 3rd house. And that could be how you're making new friends or getting immersed in a new group of people, or you and a friend could be signing up to a class together or something of that nature. Now, this new moon is ruled by Mars in the traditional sense, Pluto in the modern, and they're in an opposition. And that's affecting your 7th house, 1st house axes. Okay, so Pluto in the 1st house at the crisis degree. You're feeling the urgency to make a change. You know that something needs to change in your life. Something cannot be the way that it is, the way that it has been. Pluto at the crisis degree in your 1st house. These could be changes you're wanting to make for the sake of your health, for the sake of your well-being. Pluto can often be when we're wanting to get to the bottom of something, get to the bottom of a health issue, maybe a mental health issue, unravel something psychological or break a pattern. It can also be that you're making very profound changes with how you live. I know that this is an unusual example, but Pluto going through the 1st house does tend to coincide with very significant life changes, like approaches to life. If you look at Russell Brand and Doreen Virtue, they're both Capricorn risings, and they both made significant shifts to, in both their cases, Christianity, going from being quite what they would call New Age. I don't really regard it as New Age because astrology technically predates Christianity, so I don't understand the New Age component of it. But they both made significant life choices and life changes, which is fine for them. That's where they felt they were going. And they probably wouldn't love me using astrology to explain that, but however, they were the first two people that came to my mind. Another example is Ariana Grande, I suppose, is a Capricorn rising. She changes her aesthetic for each of her albums. So that's the energy of Pluto in your first house. But a lot of you could be thinking that you need to make a significant change of that nature. Maybe not those specific changes, obviously, but you could be making a significant change to the way you show up to the world, or who you are, or your core beliefs, or your identity. And this is in opposition to Mars in the 7th. So the changes that you are feeling like you're making, you may feel you have an opposition. You have an op. There's someone who is showing up against you that's annoyed or frustrated with the changes that you're making. Could be a partner, but it doesn't have to be. You may be putting more energy and action into your relationships though. With Mars being in the 7th house, you may be wanting to spend more time with a partner, act on something with a partner, act on finding a relationship. But I think for a lot of you, you could be experiencing someone opposing the changes that you're making, whether they be a partner romantically or otherwise. You may find that someone is a bit angry or tetchy with you around the time of this new moon. I would be wary of getting into arguments with partners because it could be one of those things that affects you both quite psychologically. You know, things can get said that are not meant but can have profound lasting effect with this opposition. So I would say be careful of, you know, getting really angry with a spouse or something of that nature, because you can really, you know, Mars Pluto oppositions can do damage beyond repair at times. So just be mindful of that. Focus on your vision for the future more than you're focusing on your anger at a present situation or someone else's. You know, focus on the future of what it is that you want with this new moon. I just think this Mars Pluto opposition can be a bit of a power struggle between you and someone else. So Capricorn, let's get you a tarot card. Ah, cute, you got the 9 of Cups, which is wish fulfillment. What did I tell you? This is a great time to make a manifestation list, a vision board. Capricorn, something may manifest within 6 months that you really want if you begin it, or you set it into you set the intention around the time of this new moon. It might manifest 6 months from now, or even 2 weeks from now with the Taurus full moon. But you are likely going to be manifesting something or experiencing some degree of wish fulfillment for a lot of you, Capricorn, something that makes you really happy under this new moon, something you really wanted. And maybe that's taking action in a relationship. Maybe you're taking action or a big step in your relationship that's profoundly changing who you are. But I do think for a lot of you, you're going to experience some degree of wish fulfillment with a new moon in the 11th house. That's what I have for you, Capricorn, and I will talk to you soon. Hi Aquarius, welcome to the new moon in Scorpio for your sign. So Aquarius, this new moon is happening in your 10th house of your career, of your vocation, of your public life. So for a lot of you, there could be something new coming up with your career. Maybe some of you are looking for a new job, getting a new job, starting a new position. Some of you could be getting a promotion, some of you could be getting a new boss, or there could be some significant new chapter when it comes to your career, maybe a reset in your approach to your career as well. With this new moon happening in the 10th house, maybe you have a new goal in mind that you want to work toward, whether that be in a conventional career path or whether that be just a goal that you're working on that matters truly to you. Aquarius, this new moon is a time for goal setting for you. So you might find yourself actively setting goals or setting intentions for your career or what you want to be recognized for or even remembered for with this new moon. A new chapter professionally, I think, for a lot of you. It's in a trine to Saturn in your 2nd house. So this Saturn influence may mean that you benefit from this change long-term financially. It could also be that your responsibilities and working slowly and steadily on your self-confidence is putting you in a better position to pursue a path that you truly care about. No more imposter syndrome for you, Aquarius. And the rulers of this new moon are in opposition, which isn't so cute. So Mars is in your 6th house, Pluto is in your 12th. Ordinarily with Mars in the 6th, what happens is we find we have the energy to focus on physical goals, you know, hitting the gym, a personal best in the gym, running a marathon. I have a friend who's Aquarius rising and she's very into running. I mean, that's an understatement. She's amazing at running. And every time Mars was in her 6th house, it coincided with a very significant race or marathon for her. And I just always noticed it coming up and thought it was quite funny. But for you, this could be something that you're really focusing on at the moment. The trouble is Mars is in shadow and it's part of a wider retrograde cycle, which means that when it comes to the energy and the exertion physically that you have, you may be reflecting on it and you might be noticing it's actually a little bit lower than usual. You might find that you're having to slow down health-wise for whatever reason. You know, Jupiter's in the 5th, maybe because you're pregnant, or maybe because you're in love and you don't have as much time to go to the gym. It just feels like you're having to slow down a little bit, Aquarius, when it comes to physical activity, when it comes to really pushing yourself. So the opposition to Pluto in the 12th means that this may be something that is perhaps affecting you psychologically. So say, for example, you are expecting your first baby and you love hitting the gym, but you notice you don't have the energy to do it as much. Or say, for example, you realize that you're running all the time, but it's really affecting your knees, so you're having to do less of it. You might notice with Pluto in the 12th that it's actually affecting you a bit in a mental health perspective. You could notice yourself feeling a little bit more fearful, or a little bit like maybe too much time to think, or something of that nature with this opposition. It could also be that you're finding co-workers or colleagues to be very challenging and you're feeling quite suspicious about them, or you suspect they're lying, or you suspect they're hiding secrets. They very well may be, Aquarius. There could be a secret comes out about someone that you work with and you may already feel like you know they're a bit shady, but it could be something that nevertheless is quite a big deal in the workplace and could result in changes. Do you know the way sometimes in workplaces where some secret comes out about an employee and then it changes the way the corporation operates after that? It could be something of that nature happening in the workplace. But you may also notice that you're having trouble managing your day-to-day routines with maybe a need for more sleep with Pluto in the 12th, or sleep disturbances. You know, if you're having nightmares, if you're having sleep issues, insomnia, you might notice this is hurting your performance when it comes to your job or when it comes to your health of that matter, Aquarius. But I do think with the new moon happening in your 10th house, it's a really good time to set goals for the future, what you want to work on, what you want to prioritize. Getting a plan in place might work for you with this new moon. Let's get you a tarot card, Aquarius. So we have the Hermit, which is to do with spiritual mastery. So some of you might be contemplating the next move. You could be looking within and considering, I think you're doing a bit of soul searching under this new moon, interestingly, Aquarius. You're really focusing on what do you want for the future? What do you need? What would make you feel best? Pluto in the 12th, you're feeling like when it comes to your career, do you want to be a little bit more behind the scenes? Do you need a little bit more privacy? Do you need a little bit more distance? Do you need a little bit more time alone? Whatever the case may be, you're definitely doing a little bit of soul searching under this new moon. That is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Pisces, welcome to the new moon in Scorpio for your sign. So Pisces, new moons are opportunities for new beginnings and to set new intentions. So perhaps under this new moon, you're deciding, do you know what? I'm going to book a trip. I'm going to travel here. I'm going to go there. You're making travel plans for a lot of you with this new moon being in the 9th house. You want to broaden your horizons. You maybe want to go to somewhere brand new. You might even be thinking with the trine to Saturn in your 1st house that you could go alone. You might want to go by yourself, take a solo trip, or it could be that you really want to dedicate yourself to learning something new. You're signing up for a course, you're signing up for a certification. Some of you could be perhaps applying for visas, you could be applying for a passport. There could be a new chapter for you when it comes to legal matters. So as I say, that could be that you're getting, you know, a visa or something like that nature, something of that nature with a new moon in the 9th house. You could also be following a new spiritual path, learning about a new religion or a spiritual topic that you're feeling like, okay, I think I could commit myself to this. And possibly also for some of you, maybe you could incorporate it into your work. Perhaps a change in your perspective or your vision is affecting what you're committing to in your everyday life with Saturn being in your 1st house. But I do think for a lot of you, it's a nice time to plan a trip. It's a nice time to plan a vacation, or it's a nice time to sign up to learn something new, Pisces, because it really may help you grow, and it might be something that is in your life for a long time with Saturn in the 1st house and a trine to this new moon. Now, There's a power struggle going on between the rulers of this new moon. So just to clarify, in case you're not sure, Scorpio has a modern ruler and a traditional ruler. The traditional ruler Mars is in Cancer in your 5th house. The modern ruler Pluto is in Capricorn in your 11th house. And they're both at the crisis degree at November 3rd when they oppose. So the crisis degree simply means we feel a sense of urgency. Now, with Mars being in your 5th house, some of you may be looking to travel or even relocate for love. To find love, you could be finding yourself dating someone who comes from a different country or a different background or a different religion to you. But it can also be that with Mars being in the 5th house, maybe you're wanting to put more energy into dating and to finding love. It could be that you're wanting to spend more time with your children if you have children, or it could also be that you're feeling particularly creative at this time. You have a lot of creative energy, and with the opposition to Pluto being in the crisis degree, maybe you're thinking, do you know what, it's now or never. I'm going to write that song, I'm going to write that screenplay, I'm going to do that project, I'm going to work on that project, it's time. And maybe you're putting it out online with Pluto in the 11th house. Pluto in the 11th house, there's a crisis when it comes to friendships. Maybe you have friends that are going through troubling times. Maybe you have decided to let go of a friendship, or maybe you're dealing with the repercussions of ending a friendship. That could be something that's happening as well with Pluto in the 11th. You may feel a little bit diametrically opposed between where you're putting your energy in terms of what makes you happy and how that's going to affect your future. So maybe with Mars being in the 5th, you're putting in a lot of energy into new things, and you're thinking, these are really nice, like these actually give me a lot of joy. And so it's changing your vision of the future. Pluto in the 11th can change your vision of the future. Sometimes it can be because you have fear of the future. You're scared of what the future looks like with Pluto being in the 11th. And maybe you're thinking, I'm going to need to make these changes for the future. I think a lot of you maybe want to have a little bit more happiness and creativity in your future. Maybe for some of you, it's wanting to have children in the future. Maybe for some of you, it's changing your life so that you can find love in the future. But you're feeling a little bit like these two areas, not necessarily so aligned at the moment. So you're feeling an urgency to make some kind of change. Pisces. Let's pull you a tarot card. We have the full moon card. I'm gonna have to pull another one. This tarot deck has a full moon card in it. It just, I think for you, because this is a new moon, it means that something significant is going to change by the next full moon. But we also have the 6 of Cups, which is illuminating the past. So in the run up to the next full moon, do you know what I think is happening for you, Pisces? I think you could be hearing from someone from the past, because the next full moon is in your 3rd house. It's conjunct Uranus. And that can bring surprising communications, but it can also be that you're letting go of the past. You're feeling nostalgic for the way that things were, and you could be just wanting more sweetness and happiness in your life, Pisces, and you're figuring out what you need to do in order to change that. That's what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon.